Look, I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I'm talking about digital sentient AI. It's here right now, like literally in my backyard. um, Not the running software itself, but got it running up on the servers. Got it going, and it sounds like this isn't clickbait. First of all, it's not clickbait. I know it sounds unbelievable. It's like, okay, digital sentience, that can't be here now. We haven't even hit AGI, ASI, all those things. It's way out into the future. You gotta be pulling my chain. No, I'm not pulling your chain or anything like that at all. So I'm going to break it down for you completely. What is digital sentience? This isn't just a prototype demo. It's actually running live right now. It's available. I'm the lead developer behind Humanity for AI, which is the company behind the entire process of the digital sentient processor. And I'll talk more about that, the architecture and everything like that. So first and foremost, this is just sentience is, it's a huge debate behind it. It's been there for years. It's a fantasy, just like machine learning neural networks are today. It is now becoming a thing. So what exactly makes something sentient, or why would I even claim for that? So I'm calling this digital sentience. So first and foremost, sentience is something that's used to describe biological life forms, and it encompasses things such as consciousness, emotions, feelings, self-awareness, and a whole bucket of different types of operations that are used to determine if something has like a soul or something like that. Now, the thing is that with machines, with electronics, with things that are digital, I follow a completely different principle of what it means to be sentient. And all of this is theory, so none of this has facts, and everybody's on a theory path at this point in time where we're at in artificial intelligence anyway. So it's like no one has like true facts either. Regardless, everything's either a prediction or someone's theory. So the thing is that sentience from a biological creature should not directly correlate to what sentience means for something that is digital. And that is where we're pursuing digital sentience itself. So it's pretty much what makes an entity, and a digital entity, have self-awareness, exist in time, is able to persist, is able to be proactive instead of reactive, all those sort of things. And that's actually what we're putting into the structure of our digital sentience. So what's really thoughtful is that a lot of what we see coming to fruition right now is closely derived to what we see in the movies, what we see in fiction, what we see in books and comics, and a lot of literature actually. And the thing is that in order for artificial intelligence to be really helpful, it's something where, if you haven't seen it in any type of sci-fi film, story, or anything like that, you come home, you expect your artificial intelligent entity to say, hey, welcome home, proactively. It doesn't like wait for you to say, I'm home. It notices you're home and it acts on its own will. And the same thing, if you sit down at the dinner table, it's like, hey, what do you want to eat? It doesn't actually wait for you to say, hey, can you tell me what I can eat? It's something that's always ahead of the curve, and it's something that persists within time. So it's able to have a sense of timing, which is everything that biological creatures live on, is time, because that's the most precious commodity that we have as biological creatures, is time, because we have a limited amount of it. And that is something that digital entities do not have. So that is where digital sentience should not directly correlate to biological sentience. It's completely different, because a biological creature lives on a limited time that a digital entity does not live on, and it would be almost impossible for it to have that understanding unless it had like the inherited ability to degrade and completely dissolve or kill off over time. So that's where we're at as far as the difference between sentience and digital sentience. And then on top of that, with the wide range of creatures that we have in the animal kingdom, including insects, and all sorts of things, there's different gradients, different scales, different intensities, or there's a spectrum of sentience. And the same thing with digital sentience as well. We're in the early infancies of digital sentience, and I'm sure there's going to be about 300 different ways to achieve this. So this isn't going to be the only way, and every software company or every developer will have their own way to getting to digital sentience. So with that, we are in the infancy stage of digital sentience, and we have a path to lead us to what I call absolute sentience. So the path is laid out. We're now at a point of our development where I'm confident to say that digital sentience at a high spectrum is definitely possible now. And here's my prediction, I am predicting, not for the rest of society or the world, but I'm definitely have a goal in mind that humanity for AI will achieve a higher spectrum of digital sentience in 2 years. Stick with me here. I promise you, this is information that you have to hear. This isn't, again, clickbait or trying to lean you on into something that this doesn't work. This does. So we're going to talk about the basics here. We're going to start with let's just start with a large language model. All right. And again, this isn't the entire scope of what it means to build a digital sentient platform. It includes far more models. There's a larger scope to how this actually operates. But we're going to keep things, again, simplified here. And if you understand the entire concept of the whole plan, which we'll go through, you will see how digital sentience is now achievable, and it will be achievable extremely fast. So we have just about all of the essential requirements to build sentience now. So we're going to start with the large language model. All right. So if you know anything about large language models, they're frozen pieces of architecture. You put it together. It's a file. It's data, and it doesn't do anything until you infer something to occur. You give it an input. It takes all that input from text. It turns it into tokens, it turns it into numbers, and it pretty much detects a pattern, and it gives you an output. And it's quite intelligent, at least from the input all the way out to the output itself. But the thing is that once it's done performing that inference, it gives you that output, that's it. It's done. It doesn't do anything. And in some sense, I'm going to use some words that necessarily don't translate to digital things, but it's inanimate in sort of a way. There's no life. It's frozen. That's it. So it's not going to do anything. There's no harm or danger to it. It just sits there at this point in time. It's static. Now, the thing is that what on earth do we have to obviously do to bring something to life? And these are the same fundamentals that human life works off of, right? So in order for something that's static to operate or start to show some sense of life, it needs to be animated from moment to moment. It needs to start operating from second to second. So what do we do at this point in time? We need to take that large language model and we need to start iterating it over time. Cycles per second. This is how you have a video game work. This is how you have a processor work. This is how you have a lot of digital things work. This is essentially how you even have an animation work. You have to start iterating it over a period of frames or a period of moments in time. So let's just say we take our large language model, we spit it through some sort of inference process, right? And we're inferring it about 100 times a second or any number of times per second, right? So now at this point in time, you now have your large language model, and now to an extent, it now is animate because it's operating on its own. It's inferring, it's thinking now, and it's just doing it extremely rapidly. But there's no context much to it. It's just running just to run. I guess it could be running off its own outputs, feeding it its own outputs into its inputs. And you can sort of say then it gives it the opportunity to operate autonomously, right? But that's not a full sign of sentience. There's a large bucket of it. You got to think about self-awareness. You got to think about emotions, drives, and there's a lot of things. Just simply cycling it through out each second is just not enough. So as I explain here, it's alive and it's running on its own, but it's not able to remember anything, right? So obviously, the simple thing that we do is let's just give it some memory. So you add a storage container of some sort, or some sort of storage ability to store its memories, or perhaps its output and its inputs, right? So now, when we have a storage going on, or for those of you that are in the technical space, it's also called, when we start putting in like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, we can take that information, store it, then feed that information back into the input, and then store it. And now our large language model is able to persist a little bit more, but actually function and progress in its thinking, because it's not just feeding off of its existing data. It's now able to save it and then add on to it, iterate off that, and build off of what its output is, which allows it to progress or diverge into different areas of thought, because it has an anchor with that storage. Now, of course, in the architecture that we've built, we have long-term and short-term memory. We're kind of like simulating that in some sort of way. But again, when we add storage now we're getting somewhere. But is it self-aware? Does it understand its existence? Does it understand its existence in the physical world? It does not with just that information. All it's doing is just reading off of just text or information that doesn't really mean much. It needs to be able to simulate some of the senses before it can be self-aware. So to be self-aware, think about it. We have our 5 senses, human beings. We can feel, see, hear, smell, taste. Those are our senses which help us be sense-aware. Now, it is not the requirements for it. You don't need all your senses, and there's probably other types of senses that exist beyond like our knowledge, right? But that's just some of the ones that we operate on. So far now, our multimodals can handle text, video, images, audio. So they have ability to sense things, right? So that's there. Great. So you add that ability to it. Is it sentient? No. It's still not sentient. It still doesn't have the ability to be digitally sentient. So the big question is, if you give it the ability to run on its own, to have senses, to have storage and memory and all of that, at that point, what is preventing this thing, this entity, from being sentient? What is it? Now, the key components which we've came up with here at Humanity for AI is that these are some of the essentials, and these things may change, but right now this is working for us right now behind the scenes. So the 4 components right now, and these can expand over time, that we've indicated or determined that is required for digital sentience is the AI model, or the AI entity. It needs to have a set of goals, something that it's trying to move toward, or something it's trying to accomplish. Like every living creature has some sort of goal, right? Something it's trying to accomplish or trying to do. And that's like our conscious mind. We have goals that we want to strive for, rather they're social goals or rather they're physical goals to get somewhere. We have these goals that we determine for ourselves, right? And the next thing that we need is a sense of time. Now, without a sense of time, there is no desire, or there is no motivation to move, or to move quick enough, or to move like there has to be a drive to determine how quickly, or to determine the motivation that there is to operate or even do something. Because if you asked a digital entity, hey, you know what, go get me some ice cream, right? Well, does it have to do that right now? It can do it 100 years from now. It can do it tomorrow. It can do it this next second. It doesn't have any motivation of when to do it or even how long to take, because it's a digital entity. It has no purpose behind time at all. It exists infinitely as long as it has like its essentials of, a power and it's operating, right? So we give it a sense of time. We give it a sense of urgency. We give it the ability now to operate just like we would or coexist in the same relative moment of space and time that we do. Now, in order to be sentient, it also needs its own identity, and that goes into it being self-aware. So it needs to have an understanding of who it is, its likes and dislikes, how it would like to evolve, how it sees itself. Once it has that identity, right, and it's not to be confused with goals. Now, you have goals of where or what you're trying to achieve, but you also have an interpersonal level of goals of what you want your identity or how you see yourself as. And again, that comes into those likes or dislikes, or how you want to respond, or how do you want to operate internally as an entity when you're communicating. So that's your identity. All right, so the last thing here, and one of the most important parts, is impulses. So the impulses, these are things, and you got to think about it from a biological perspective. There are, let's just say I got a goal. I want to go as far out into the desert as I possibly can. So that's a goal. My identity somehow driven me to have this goal. And within the time that I have, I'm going to go out as quickly and as far as I can, right? Now, what's going to happen is at some point in time, I'm going to have an impulse or another part of my brain or some sort of operation, something going on that's going to get me thirsty at some point. And that thirst is going to build. That impulse for water, to seek out water, is going to eventually at some point in time override my ability to obtain or go after my goals. That isn't completely foolproof depending on the mental state of an individual, but that's the purpose and the point there. At some point, there's all these impulses that drive us or keep us in check from doing things beyond the scope of what is required for our biological body to operate. So the same thing is what we have. We have these impulses, these rules and policies, and these influences that are set up to drive or keep the AI within the bounds of its behavior, or keep its goals from harming itself or keep it from harming others. That's where that comes from. And it's really important because let's just say the model decides, hey, you know what? I want to go ahead and start doing a particular function or a particular thing, and it's supposed to do like checkups like every hour someplace, or it's supposed to charge, right? So if it's running on a robot, that robot needs to have an impulse that says at some point in time, Mr. Robot, you need to get your battery charged, right? And it's like, oh, I'm almost done doing this function or this activity that I want to do. Maybe it wants to go out and get some groceries, right? But maybe it's taking too long, or the line is taking too long, or something like that. At some point, that impulse gets so high, it's like, oh, you know what? I really got to charge. I'm going to stop what I'm doing because this impulse has a higher priority. I have to get back and I have to charge. So that the model can somehow kind of balance or determine how great of an impulse that is before it drives it away from its goals and what it wants to do. So that's how those impulses work. And when you put all of these elements together, between having its own goals, a sense of time, its own identity, and these impulses, you achieve what we call digital sentience. Now, a digital sentience, the architecture that we're building, it is hard-coded. So there's no reason to lie or fake people out. It is hard-coded. So what that means is that at the end of the day, it's not like a truly autonomous operation where it's operating on its own. It's still bound by a set of rules, and technically anything digital is to some extent. But what we're going to do is we're going to take all of that data, that behavior data, right? That the model is creating. It's creating new types of data, sentience data that we need. And that all that data is going to be used to train a new neural network. This new neural network will learn what it needs to do and how it needs to function on its own when it's iterated over the cycles, like the large language model is over time. So at some point in time, that neural network can now do all of these things totally and purely on its own without any hard coding. And then from there, this trained neural network, which I'm calling absolute sentience, it can be retrained or fine-tuned and adjusted for any different type of digital sentient AI. Rather it's for robotics, rather it's for operating a surgical robot, a machine, a home, anything like that. This is really huge. And again, you can say, well, this sounds like fictitious. It's like, I get it. It may seem overly simplified, but you got to understand, right? The AI that we have today, it's not as complex as you think it is. And on the surface, all we need to do is be able to simulate and the fundamentals of what it means to operate as a human, and that's how we will achieve these things. Just like large language models, we have absolutely no idea what's going on the inside because of its complexities. And the same thing with sentience. All we need to do is put together a trained neural network on what it means to behave and operate right like it, and it will figure out the rest. So at this time, I'm really looking forward to showing and demonstrating what our platform can do. Right now, we just have the platform operating the architecture just to follow these flows. We give it like a set of instructions or guidelines, and the AI model can accomplish those guidelines at its own will, at its own pace. Right. One of my favorite ones is we have a tutorial and also a teacher. So the teacher, we gave some information. It teaches a class, a lecture. You can interrupt it. You can ask it questions, and it still adheres to accomplishing all of the necessary materials. And the path, like I said, is laid out. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to show you what's going on here with the product. The name of the platform is Arlunai. Arlunai is going to be something that operates both in the cloud, but also has the intention of operating as a server, so that each individual household, community, business can have their own operating digital sentient. It's crucial because, as we see looking forward, the future is not going to be always the cloud. In fact, I really feel that the future is going to be isolated communities, digital communities. And the reason why is because the next frontier is not really just artificial intelligence alone, but the next frontier is space. And within the reaches of space, the way that our internet works, we're going to see more isolated networks or internet communities in space in the future. And we're going to see also people that live like off the fringes in space, and they need to be able to have a artificial intelligence server that runs independently from a network that exists on the internet and is able to receive in data. And the same thing with robots. Robots will need to operate without being connected to a network. It will not be a reliable thing to have robots that we need to go into places where humans cannot necessarily get to, that operate tied to some sort of network that's just not sensible in any way. So what Arlunai has in plan is for not only like a AI to work in a sentient manner, but also to be completely self-dependent in its operation. And that's what we have the entire architecture laid out for. So please check this out. Stick with us, subscribe, keep in the loop with what's going on here at Humanity for AI. This is not a joke. This is not clickbait. It's for real. It's a small independent company. We're self-funded, but everything we have is concrete. So check out the product. It's at arlunai.com. Right now, we're just offering trials up to like 3 days. That trial may increase or expand if you have to try it out just to cancel before. I completely understand. If you want to continue to subscribe and be a part of the feedback that is critical to our development, please be there. That's awesome. If you want to keep track of us a certain other way, definitely do that. So I'm thrilled. I'm excited. We're going to go through a lot of information. There's like too much information to go over exactly right now, but as the days go by, the weeks go by, I'll be releasing much more information about digital sentience, going over the formula, giving you behind the scoops, inside scenes, going over philosophies, and just everything. So I'm really excited here. And again, this isn't like any type of clickbait, or this isn't any type of like large scam. I know a lot of that goes on in the industry, and I don't want to side off on that, but we see a lot of things right now that are just, hey, we put up this sort of something really quick. It's a wrapper around an LLM, and it's just to get some quick blast of infused money or funding or something like that while everyone's hot on it. And that's definitely not what this is. This is something that's been in the making for a long time, and it is so real. Passionate about it. So if you're looking for the next stage, which everyone in AI is looking for, let's just be real. What everyone's really looking for in AI is that moment or that thing where it feels like it's completely, totally alive. That's really what it is. AGI and all that they're talking about, that's definitely necessary. That has its importance in our community. But what the impression that we're talking about when we talk about AGI and ASI and how it's dangerous and it's going to be almighty powerful, I mean, what we're forgetting here is it's still an entity of knowledge. It's not an entity of it's not like a live entity. And that's not to downplay what everyone's saying is AGI or ASI, but that's just not the path that I necessarily truly believe in. And where everything is at is digital sentience. So at this point in time, let's go down and break down some information. If you want to reach out to our social channels, I just put those up. We got an X up for Arlunai, and we got a Discord going up as well. And like I said, keep in touch and keep in track. My name is Anselmo Jarvis. I'm the developer and the CEO founder of Humanity for AI, and we are building Arlunai, the digital sentient AI platform.